Hello and welcome to Bookspot. I'm Earl Weinberg. This time we will continue our reading of Rewards and Fairies by Rudyard Kipling. Puck is telling Dan and Una of a time when the fairies of the hill adopted a mortal child and were going to bring him up to a great fortune. But he is a mortal boy, and little boys will be little boys even if their play companion is Puck himself. We came across a man up Brightling who was beating his wife with a bat in the garden. I was just going to toss the man over his own woodlump when the boy jumped the hedge and ran at him. Of course, the woman took her husband's part, and while the man beat him, the woman scratched his face. It wasn't till I danced among the cabbages like Brightling beacon all ablaze that they gave up and ran indoors. The boy's fine green and gold clothes were torn all to pieces, and he'd been welted in 20 places with the man's bat and scratted by the woman's nails to pieces. He looked like a Robertsbridge hopper on a Monday morning. "Robin," said he while I was trying to clean him down with a bunch of hay, "I don't quite understand Folkenhausen. I went to help that old woman and she hit me, Robin." "What else did you expect?" I said. "That was the one time when you might have worked one of your charms instead of running into 3 times your weight." "I didn't think," he said, "but I caught the man one on the head that was as good as any charm. Did you see it work, Robin?" "Mind your nose," I said. "Bleed it on a dock leaf, not your sleeve, for pity's sake." I knew what the Lady Esclairmonde would say. He didn't care. He was as happy as a gypsy with a stolen pony, and the front part of his gold coat, all blood and grass stains, looked like ancient sacrifices. Of course, the people of the hills laid the blame on me. The boy could do nothing wrong in their eyes. "You were bringing him up to act an influence on Folkenhausen when you're ready to let him go," I said. "Now he's begun to do it. Why do you cry shame on me? That's no shame. It's his nature drawing him to his kind." "But we don't want him to begin that way," said Lady Esclairmonde. "We intend a splendid fortune for him, not your flitter-by-night hedge-jumping gypsy work." "I don't blame you, Robin," said Sir Huon, "but I do think you might look after the boy more closely." "I've kept him away from cold iron these 17 years, I said. "You know as well as I do, the first time he touches cold iron, he'll find his own fortune in spite of everything you intend for him. You owe me something for that." Sir Huon, having been a man, was going to allow me the right of it, but the Lady Esclairmonde, being the mother of all mothers, over-persuaded him. "We're very grateful," said Sir Huon, "but we think that just for the present you are about too much with him on the hill." "Though you have said it," I said, "I will give you a second chance." I did not like being called to account for my doings on my own hill. I wouldn't have stood it even that far, except that I loved that boy. "No, no," says Lady Esclairmonde. "He's never any trouble when he's left to me and himself. It's your fault." "You have said it," I answered. "Hear me. From now on till the boy has found his fortune, whatever that may be, I vow to you all on my hill, by oak and ash and thorn, and by the hammer of Asa Thor," again Puck made that curious double cut in the air, "that you may leave me out of all your counts and reckonings." Then I went out, he snapped his fingers, like the puff of a candle, and they called and cried, and they made nothing by it. I didn't promise not to keep an eye on the boy, though. I watched him close, close, close. When he found what his people had forced me to do, he gave them a piece of his mind, but they all kissed and cried round him, and being only a boy, he came over to their way of thinking, I don't blame him, and called himself unkind and ungrateful, and it all ended in fresh shows and plays and magics to distract him from Folkenhausen. Dear heart alive, how he used to call and call on me, and I couldn't answer or even let him know that I was near. "Not even once," said Una, "if he was very lonely?" "No, he couldn't," said Dan, who'd been thinking. "Didn't you swear by the hammer of Thor that you wouldn't, Puck?" "By that hammer," was the deep rumbled reply. Then he came back to his soft speaking voice. And the boy was lonely when he couldn't see me any more. He began to try to learn all learning. He had good teachers, but I saw him lift his eyes from the big black books toward Folkenhausen all the time. He studied song-making, good teacher he had, too, but he sung those songs with his back toward the hill and his face toward folk. I know. I've sat and grieved over him, grieving with a rabbit's jump of him. Then he studied the high, low, and middle magic. He had promised the Lady Esclarmonde he would never go near Folkenhausen, so he had to make shows and shadows for his mind to chew on. "What sort of shows?" said Dan. "Just boys' magic, as we say. I'll show you some sometime." It pleased him for the while, and it didn't hurt anyone in particular, except a few men coming home late from the taverns. But I knew what it was a sign of, and I followed him like a weasel follows a rabbit. As good a boy as ever lived. I've seen him with Sir Huon and Lady Esclarmonde stepping just as they stepped to avoid the track of cold iron in a furrow, or walking wide of some old ash-tot because a man had left his swap-hook or spade there, and all his heart aching to go straight forward among Folkenhausen all the time. Oh, a good boy. They always intended a fine fortune for him, but they could never find it in their hearts to let him begin. I've heard that many warned them, but they wouldn't be warned. So it happened as it happened. One hot night I saw the boy roving about here, wrapped in his flaming discontents. There was flash on flash against the clouds, and rush on rush of shadows down the valley, till the shaws were full of his hounds giving tongue, and the woodways were packed with his knights in armor riding down into the water mists, all his own magic, of course. Behind them you could see great castles lifting slow and splendid on arches of moonshine, with maidens waving their hands at the windows, which all turned into roaring rivers, and then would come the darkness of his own young heart, wiping out all the whole slateful. But boy's magic doesn't trouble me, or Merlin's either, come to that matter. I followed the boy by the flashes and the whirling wildfire of his discontent, and oh, but I grieved for him. Oh, but I grieved for him. He pounded back and forth like a bullock in a strange pasture, sometimes alone, sometimes waist-deep among his shadow hounds, sometimes leading his shadow knights on a hawk-winged horse to rescue his shadow girls. I never guessed he had such magic at his command, but it's often that way with boys. Just when the owl comes home for the second time, I saw Sir Huon and the lady ride down my hill, where there's not much magic allowed except mine. They were very pleased at the boy's magic, the valley flared with it, and I heard them settling his splendid fortune when they should find it in their hearts to let him go and act influence among Folkenhausen. Sir Huon was for making him a great king somewhere or other, and the lady was for making him a marvelous wise man whom all should praise for his skill and kindness. She was very kind-hearted. Of a sudden, we saw the flashes of his discontent turn back on the clouds, and his shadow hounds stopped baying. "There's magic fighting magic over yonder," said Lady Esclarmonde, reining up. "Who's against him?" I could have told her, but I did not count it any of my business to speak of Asa Thor's comings and goings. "How did you know?" said Una. A slow northeast wind blew up, sawing and fretting through the oaks in a way I remembered. The wildfire roared up one last time in one sheet and snuffed out like a rushlight, and a bucketful of stinging hail fell. We heard the boy walking in the long slip where I first met you. "Here, oh, come here," said Lady Esclarmonde, stretching out her arms in the dark. He was coming slowly, but he stumbled in the footpath, being, of course, mortal man. "Why, what's this?" he said to himself. We three heard him. "Hold, lad, hold! Wear cold iron!" said Sir Huon, and they too swept down like nightjars, crying as they rode. I ran at their stirrups, but it was too late. We felt that the boy had touched cold iron somewhere in the dark, for the horses of the hill shied off and whipped round snorting. Then I judged it was time for me to show myself in my own shape, so I did. "Whatever it is," I said, "he has taken hold of it. Now we must find out whatever it is he has taken hold of, for that will be his fortune." "Come here, Robin," the boy shouted as soon as he heard my voice. "I don't know what I've got hold of." "It is in your hands," I called. "Tell us if it is hard and cold with jewels atop, for that will be a king's scepter." "Not by a furlong," he said, and stooped and tugged in the dark. We heard him. Has it a handle and 2 cutting edges? I called, for that'll be a knight's sword. No, it hasn't, he said. It's neither plowshare, whittle, hook, nor crook, nor aught I've yet seen men handle. By this time he was scratting in the dirt to prise it up. Whatever it is, you know who put it there, Robin, said Sir Huon to me, or you would not ask those questions. You should have told me as soon as you knew. What could you or I have done against the smith that made it and laid it for him to find? I said, and I whispered to Sir Huon what I had seen at the forge on Thor's day when the babe was first brought to the hill. Oh, goodbye our dreams, said Sir Huon. It's neither sceptre, sword, nor plough. Maybe yet it's a book full of learning bound with iron clasps. There's a chance for a splendid fortune in that sometimes. But we knew we were only speaking to comfort ourselves, and Lady Esclairmont, having been a woman, said so. Thor, help us, the boy called. It is round without end, cold iron, 4 fingers wide and a thumb thick, and there's writing on the breadth of it. Read the writing if you have the learning, I called. The darkness had lifted by then, and the owl was out over the fern again. He called back, reading the runes on the iron. Few can see further forth than when child meets the cold iron. And there he stood in clear starlight, with a new, heavy, shining slave ring round his proud neck. Is this how it goes? He asked, while Lady Esclairmont cried. That is how it goes, I said. He hadn't snapped the catch home yet, though. What fortune does it mean for him? Said Sir Huon, while the boy fingered the ring. You who walk under cold iron, you must tell us and teach us. Tell I can, but teach I cannot, I said. The virtue of the ring is only that he must go among folk in housen henceforward, do what they want done or what he knows they need, all old England over. Never will he be his own master, nor yet ever any man's. He will get half he gives, and give twice what he gets, till his life's last breath. And if he lays aside his load before he draws that last breath, all his work will go for naught. Oh, cruel, wicked Thor, cried Lady Esclairmont. Ah, look, see, all of you, the catch is still open. He hasn't locked it. He can still take it off. He can still come back. Come back! She went as near as she dared, but she could not lay hands on cold iron. The boy could have taken it off, yes. We waited to see if he would, but he put up his hand, and the snap locked home. What else could I have done? Said he. Surely then you will do, I said. Morning's coming, and if you 3 have any farewells to make them now, for after sunrise, cold iron must be your master. So the 3 sat down, cheek by wet cheek, telling forth their farewells till morning light. As good a boy as ever lived he was. And what happened to him? Asked Anne. When morning came, cold iron was master of him and his fortune, and he went to work among folk in housen. Presently he came across a maid like-minded with himself, and they were wedded and had bushels of children, as the saying is. Perhaps you'll meet some of his breed this year. Thank you, said Una. But what did the poor Lady Esclairmont do? What can you do when Asa Thor lays cold iron in a lad's path? She and Sir Huon were comforted to think they'd given the boy good store of learning to act and influence on folk in housen, for he was a good boy. Isn't it getting on time for breakfast? I'll walk with you a piece. When they were well in the center of the bone-dry fern, Dan nudged Una, who stopped and put on a boot as quickly as she could. Now, she said, you can't get any oak ash and thorn leaves from here, and, she balanced wildly on one leg, I'm standing on cold iron. What'll you do if we don't go away? Eh? Of all the mortal impudence, said Puck, as Dan, also in one boot, grabbed his sister's hand to steady himself. He walked round them, shaking with delight. You think I can only work with a handful of dead leaves? That comes of taking away your doubt and fear. I'll show you. A minute later, they charged into old Hobden at his simple breakfast of cold roast pheasant, shouting that there was a wasp's nest in the fern which they had nearly stepped on, and asked him to come and smoke it out. "It's too early for wasps' nests, and I don't go digging in the hill, not for shillin's," said the old man placidly. "You've a thorn in your foot, Miss Una. Sit down and put on your t'other boot. You're too old to be caperin' barefoot on an empty stomach. Stay it with this chicken of mine." Cold iron. Gold is for the mistress, silver for the maid, copper for the craftsman cunning at his trade. "Good," said the baron, sitting in his hall, "but iron, cold iron, is master of them all." So he made rebellion 'gainst the king his liege, camped before his citadel, and summoned it to siege. "Nay," said the cannoneer on the castle wall, "but iron, cold iron, shall be master of you all." Woe for the baron and his knights so strong, when the cruel cannonballs laid 'em all along. He was taken prisoner, he was cast in thrall, and iron, cold iron, was master of it all. Yet his king spake kindly, oh how kind a lord! "What if I release thee now, and give thee back thy sword?" "Nay," said the baron, "mock not at my fall, for iron, cold iron, is master of men all." Tears are for the craven, prayers are for the clown, halters for the silly neck that cannot keep a crown. As my loss is grievous, so my hope is small, for iron, cold iron, must be master of men all. Yet his king made answer, few such kings there be, "Here is bread and here is wine, sit and sup with me. Eat and drink in Mary's name, the whiles I do recall how iron, cold iron, can be master of men all." He took the wine and blessed it. He blessed and brake the bread. With his own hands he served them, and presently he said, "Look, these hands they pierced with nails outside my city wall show iron, cold iron, to be master of men all." Wounds are for the desperate, blows are for the strong, balm and oil for weary hearts all cut and bruised with wrong. I forgive thy treason, I redeem thy fall, for iron, cold iron, must be master of men all. Crowns are for the valiant, scepters for the bold, thrones and powers for mighty men who dare to take and hold. "Nay," said the baron, kneeling in his hall, "but iron, cold iron, is master of men all. Iron out of Calvary is master of men all." Gloriana. Valor and innocence have latterly gone hence, to certain death by certain shame attended. Envy, even to tears, the fortune of their years, which, though so few, get so divinely ended. Scarce had they lifted up life's full and fiery cup, than they had set it down untouched before them. Before their day arose, they beckoned it to close in destruction and confusion o'er them. They did not stay to ask what prize should crown their task. Well sure that prize was such as no man strives for, but passed into eclipse, her kiss upon their lips, even Belphoebe's, who they gave their lives for. Willow Shaw, the little fenced wood where the hop poles are stacked like Indian wigwams, had been given to Dan and Una for their very own kingdom when they were quite small. As they grew older, they contrived to keep it most particularly private. Even Phillips, the gardener, told them every time he came in to take a hop pole for his beans, and old Hobden would no more have thought of setting his rabbit wires there without their leave, given fresh each spring, than he would have torn down the calico and marking ink notice on the big willow, which said, "Grown-ups not allowed in the kingdom unless brought." Now you can understand their indignation when one blowy July afternoon, as they were going up for a potato roast, they saw somebody moving among the trees. They hurled themselves over the gate, dropping half the potatoes, and while they were picking them up, Puck came out of a wigwam. "Oh, it's you, is it?" said Una. "We thought it was people." "I saw you were angry from your legs," he answered with a grin. "Well, it's our own kingdom, not counting you, of course." "That's rather why I came. A lady here wants to see you." "What about?" said Dan cautiously. "Oh, just kingdoms and things. She knows about kingdoms." There was a lady near the fence, dressed in a long dark cloak that hid everything except her high red-heeled shoes. Her face was half covered by a black silk-fringed mask without goggles, and yet she did not look in the least as if she motored. Puck led them up to her and bowed solemnly. Una made the best dancing lesson curtsy she could remember. The lady answered with a long, deep, slow, billowy one. "Since it seems that you are a queen of this kingdom," she said, "I can do no less than acknowledge your sovereignty." She turned sharply on staring Dan. "What's in your head, lad? Manners?" "I was thinking how wonderfully you did that curtsy," he answered. She laughed a rather shrill laugh. "You're a courtier already. Do you know anything of dances, wench? Or queen, must I say?" "I've had some lessons, but I can't really dance a bit," said Una. "You should learn then." The lady moved forward as though she would teach her at once. "It gives a woman alone among men, or her enemies, time to think how she shall win or lose. A woman can only work in man's playtime. Hi-ho." She sat down on the bank. Old Middenboro, the lawnmower pony, stumped across the paddock and hung his sorrowful head over the fence. "A pleasant kingdom," said the lady, looking round, "well enclosed. And how does your majesty govern it? Who is your minister?" Una did not quite understand. "We don't play that," she said. "Play?" The lady threw up her hands and laughed. "We have it for our own together," Dan explained. "And you never quarrel, young Burley?" "Sometimes, but then we don't tell." The lady nodded. "I've no brats of my own, but I understand keeping a secret between queens and their ministers. Ay de me, but with no disrespect to present majesty, methinks your realm is small, and therefore likely to be coveted by man and beast. For example," she pointed to Middenboro, "yonder old horse with the face of a Spanish friar, does he never break in?" "He can't. Old Hobden stops all our gaps for us," said Una, "and we let Hobden catch rabbits in the shaw." The lady laughed like a man. "I see. Hobden catches conies, rabbits, for himself, and guards your defenses for you. Does he make a profit out of his coney catching?" "We never ask," said Una. "Hobden's a particular friend of ours." "Hoity-toity," the lady began angrily. Then she laughed. "But I forget. It is your kingdom. I knew a maid once that had a larger one than this to defend, and so long as her men kept the fences stopped, she asked them no questions either." "Was she trying to grow flowers?" said Una. "No, trees. Perdurable trees. Her flowers all withered." The lady leaned her head on her hand. "They do if you don't look after 'em. We've got a few. Would you like to see? I'll fetch you some." Una ran off to the rank grass in the shade behind the wigwam and came back with a handful of red flowers. "Aren't they pretty? They're Virginia stock." "Virginia?" said the lady, and lifted them to the fringe of her mask. "Yes, they come from Virginia. Did your maid ever plant any?" "Not herself. But her men adventured all over the earth to pluck or to plant flowers for her crown. They judged her worthy of them." "And was she?" said Dan cheerfully. "Quien sabe? Who knows? But at least, while her men toiled abroad, she toiled in England that they might find a safe home to come back to." "What was she called?" "Gloriana, Belphoebe, Elizabeth of England." Her voice changed at each word. "You mean Queen Bess?" The lady bowed her head a little toward Dan. "You name her lightly enough, young Burley. Who might you know? What might you know of her?" she said. "Well, I've seen the little green shoes she left at Brickwall House, down the road, you know. They're in a glass case, awfully tiny things." "Oh, Burley, Burley," she laughed, "you are a courtier too soon." "But they are," Dan insisted, "as little as doll's shoes. Did you really know her well?" "Well." She was a woman. I've been at her court all my life. Yes, I remember when she danced after the banquet at Brickwall. They say she danced Philip of Spain out of a brand new kingdom that day. Worth the price of a pair of old shoes, hey? She thrust out one foot and stooped forward to look at its broad flashing buckle. And we'll hear more what this mysterious lady has to say about Queen Bess and Philip of Spain next time.